Hello, dear students. I am Instructor Waliat from Edubbey Global Solution. Today, we'll be looking at classification of living organisms. I have created the slides to be simple and easy to understand. Happy viewing. I hope you stay glued to the end of the class. Attached to the video are some past questions. The need to classify living organisms. The science of placing organisms into categories on the basis of observable characteristics is what we know as classification. Each species has different characteristics. These characteristics can be inherited by successive generation of that species. Observing these inherited characteristics allows scientists to put all living organisms into categories. There is an enormous variety of life, and it would be impossible to study them without an ordered way of classifying them. On the right hand side of the slide, we have a diagrammatic representation of biological classification of living things. Classification is needed for conservation and in understanding evolutionary relationships. Some classification keys. On this slide, I have a diagrammatic representation of showing the five kingdoms, the five major kingdoms. We have the prokaryotes, the protistans, the plants, fungi, and animals. So this dichotomous key, that is a key showing whether it is yes, whether an organism belongs to a category or not. So that is two keys branching into a spider like key. So we have all living organisms, and then we also have some questions to guide us for the dichotomous key. If an organism has a definite nucleus, it is classified as yes. So if it does not have a definite nucleus, it's classified as no. So that goes to prokaryote, the first category of kingdom. Then we further classify the yes into if that particular organism is made up of many different cells. If it is made up of many different cells, that's a yes. It is still branched into plants, whether it is plant or animal or fungi. But if it is no, then it's classified to the second kingdom, which are the protistans, and that goes on like that. The branching keys are easy to use, but take up some space to be drawn out. So the hierarchy of classification now. Using the key in the previous slide, it is possible to place living organisms in any of the five large groups. These groups, distinguished by obvious characteristics of morphology and anatomy, are the five kingdoms. Individual species can be placed into further groups within a kingdom. The sequence of this hierarchy of classification is in the sequence of kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, and species. On the right hand side, we have the classification of lion belonging to the kingdom Animalia, a genus Panthera, and specific name Leo. The binomial system of nomenclature. The convention way of giving organisms a two-part name made up of their genus and species was introduced by a Swedish biologist, Carol Linnaeus. He gave organisms names based on the body structure of the organism, and then some examples of some organisms that we named with this binomial system of nomenclature are one, Panthera leo, that is the lion. We also have maize, and ratus, the common rat. We should take note of how the generic name starts in capital letter and specific name starts with small letter. and the scientific name is italicized. Recently, there are new classification methods. New species today may be classified based on their protein structure, chromosome number, or gene. Organisms which are closely related have similar amino and base sequence. If asked to suggest one feature that places Panthera leu, that is the lion, in the animal kingdom, our obvious answer will be that it is an ingestive heterotroph. That is, it depends on other organisms for its food. And if also asked, members of the same species can mate to produce fertile offspring. That is, you only get to see members of the same species to give rise to the same kind of species. That is linked with reproduction. Some past year questions that I have attached to this video. The first question I have here, which is a Cambridge question, says which term means a group of organisms that can produce fertile offspring. Yes, a group of organisms that can reproduce to produce fertile offspring. The obvious answer here is species, like I explained earlier. Another question here. A scientist studied wild birds that lived by a lake. He observed that one bird species had a beak that was adapted to extract small insects from the water. Which process would have occurred in the development of this specialized beak? The answer is natural selection. What is the most accurate method of classifying animals? The most accurate method is one of the new classification method, which as against that of Carolus Linnaeus, which was just based on morphology and anatomy. So we have recent methods now that are more accurate, and that is identifying similarities in DNA based sequences. A species of insect usually has pale colored wings. This helps to camouflage them on pale colored tree trunks. A few of the insects in this species have darker colored wings. After a number of years, the tree trunks become darker in color due to environmental changes. These insects with dark colored wings become more common than insects with pale colored wings in this species. Which process causes this change in the proportion of insects with dark colored wings? The answer to this is natural selection. The scientific names of some animals are listed below. And there's a question that says, which animals are in the same genus? The obvious answers here is C, which is 1 and 2. Camelus dromedarius and Camelus ferus. The next chapter I'll be looking at is fungi. Thanks for your audience.